Class 12th subject Geography, Social Science, chapter number 5 Land Resources and Agriculture. Different uses of land. You must have observed that the land around you is put to different uses. Some land is occupied by rivers, some may have trees, and on some parts roads and buildings have been built. Children, different types of lands are suited to different uses. Human beings thus use land as resource for production as well as residence and recreation. The buildings of your school, roads on which you travel, parks in which you play, fields in which crops are grown, and the pastures where animals graze represent different uses to which land is put. Land use categories. Land use records are maintained by Land Revenue Department. The land use categories add up to reporting areas, which is somewhat different from the geographical area. Children, the Survey of India is responsible for measuring geographical area of administrative units in India. Land use categories are as follow. Land put to non-agriculture uses, area under permanent pastures and grazing lands, area under miscellaneous tree crops and groves not included in net sown area, cultivable wasteland, current fallow, fallow other than current fallow, net area sown. Land put to non-agriculture uses. Land under settlements, that is rural and urban, infrastructures, road, canals, etc., industries, shop, etc. are included in this category. Children, an expansion in the secondary and tertiary activities would lead to an increase in this category of land use. Area under permanent pastures and grazing lands. Most of this type of land is owned by village, panchayat or the government. Children, only a small proportion of this land is privately owned. The land owned by the village panchayat comes under common property resources. Area under miscellaneous trees, crops and groves not included in net sown area. The land under orchards and fruit trees are included in this category. Children, much of this land is privately owned. Cultivable wasteland. Any land which is left fallow, uncultivated, that is, for more than 5 years is included in this category. Children, it can be brought under cultivation after improving its through reclamation practices. Current fallow. This is the land which is left without cultivation for one or less than one agriculture year. Next is fallow other than current fallow. Children, this is also a cultivable land which is left uncultivable for more than a year but less than 5 years. Children, if the land is left uncultivated for more than 5 years, it would be categorized as cultivable wasteland. Next, area sown. The physical extent of land on which crops are sown and harvested is known as net sown area. In the given image, you can see net sown area is 140.8, that is into million hectares, and irrigated area is 65.3 million hectares. Percentage irrigated area is 46.4 and population dependent on rain-fed land is 44% and agri production in rain-fed land is 44%. Land use changes in India. Land use in a region to a large extent is influenced by the nature of economic activities carried out in that region. However, while economic activities change over time, land, like many other natural resources, is fixed in terms of its area. At this stage, one needs to appreciate three types of changes that an economy undergoes, which affects land use. The first is size of the economy. The second is the composition of the economy. The third is the pressure on land for agriculture activities does not decline. Size of the economy. It is measured in terms of value for all the goods and services produced in the economy. Grows over time as a result of increasing population, change in income levels, available technology and associated factors. As a result, the pressure on land will increase with time and marginal lands would come under use. The composition of the economy, it would undergo a change over time. In other words, the secondary and the tertiary sectors usually grow much faster than the primary sector, especially the agriculture sector. Children, this type of change is common in developing countries like India. This process would result in a gradual shift of land from agriculture uses to non-agriculture uses. You would observe that such changes are sharp around large urban areas. The agricultural land is being used for building purposes. Though the contribution of the agriculture activities reduce over time, the pressure on the land for agriculture activities does not decline. The reasons for continued pressure on agricultural land are: A. In developing countries, the share of population dependent on agriculture usually declines much more slowly compared to the decline in the sector's share in GDP. The number of people that the higher agriculture sector has to feed is increasing day to day. In the given image is of the graph shows changes in shares of land use categories in India year 1950 to 51 and 2014 to 15. Children, let's begin first with the year 1950 to 51. Land under forest was 17 and land under non-agriculture use was 3.2 and barren and uncultivable wasteland was 13.4. Next is permanent pasture and grazing land was 2.3 and area under miscellaneous tree crops and groups was 6.9 and cultivable wasteland was 8 and fallow other than current fallow was 6.1 and current fallow was 3.7 and net area sown was 41.7. The next comes under the year 2014-15. The share of land use was 23.3 and area under non-agriculture use was 8.7. Barren and uncultivable wasteland was 5.5. Permanent pasture and grazing land was 3.3 and area under miscellaneous tree crops and grove was 1.0. Cultivable wasteland was 4. Fallow other than current fallow was 3.6. Current fallow was 4.9 and net sown area was 45.5. India has undergone major changes within the economy over the past 4 or 5 decades, and this has influenced the land use changes in the country. These changes between the year 1950 to 51 and the year 2014-15 have been shown in the figure. Children, you may observe 4 categories have undergone increases while 4 have registered declines. Share of area under forest, area under non-agriculture uses, current fallow lands and net area sown have shown an increase. The following observations can be made about these increases. The rate of increase is the highest in case of area under non-agriculture uses. This is due to the changing structure of Indian economy, which is increasingly dependent on the contribution from industrial and services section and expansion of related infrastructure facilities. Also, an expansion of area under both urban and rural settlements had added to the increase. Children, thus the area under non-agriculture uses is increasing at the expense of wasteland and agriculture land. Next, the increase in the share under forest as explained before can be accounted for by increase in the demarcated area under forest rather than an actual increase in the forest cover in the country. The increase in the current fallow cannot be explained from information pertaining to only 2 points. The trend of current fallow fluctuates a great deal over years depending on the variability of rainfall and cropping cycles. Next, the increase in net area sown is a recent phenomenon due to use of cultivable waste land for agriculture purpose, before which it was registering a slow decrease. There are indications that most of the decline had occurred due to the increases in area under non-agriculture use. The next comes the 4 categories that have registered a decline are barren and wasteland, cultivable wasteland, area under pastures and tree crops and fallow lands. The following explanation can be given for the declining trends are as the pressure on land increase both from the agriculture and non-agriculture sectors, the wastelands and cultivable wastelands have witnessed decline over time. The decline in land under pastures and grazing lands can be explained by pressure from agricultural land, illegal encroachment due to expansion of cultivation and on common pasture lands is largely responsible for this decline. Common property resources land according to its ownership can broadly be classified under 2 broad heads. One is private land and second is common property resources, that is CPRS. While the private land, that is a farmer, is owned by an individual or a group of individuals, the latter is owned by the state meant for the use of the community. CPRs, that is common property resources, provide fodder for the livestock and fuel for the households along with other minor forest products like fruits, nuts, fiber, medicinal plants, etc. Children in rural areas, such land is of particular relevance for the livelihood of the landless and marginal farmers and other weaker sections, since many of them depend on income from their livestock due to the fact that they have limited access to land. CPR can be defined as community's natural resource where every member has the right of access and usage with specified obligations, without anybody having property rights over them. Community forest, pasture lands, village water bodies and other public spaces were a group larger than a household or family unit, exercises rights of use and carries responsibility of management are examples of CPRs. Agriculture land use in India. Agriculture is a purely land-based activity unlike secondary and tertiary activities. In other words, contribution of land in agriculture outputs is more compared to its contribution in the outputs in the other sectors. Thus, lack of access to land is directly correlated with Incidence of poverty in rural areas. Quality of land has a direct bearing on the productivity of agriculture, which is not true for other activities. Children, quality of land has a direct bearing on the productivity of agriculture, which is not true for other activities. In rural areas, aside from its value as a productive factor, land ownership has a social value and serves as a security for credit, natural hazards, or life contingencies, and also adds to the social status. An estimation of the total stock of agricultural land resources, that is total cultivable land, can be arrived at by adding up net sown area, all fallow lands and cultivable wastelands. Children, it may be observed from the given table that over the years there has been a marginal decline in the available total stock of cultivable land as a percentage to total reporting area. Children, there has been a greater decline of cultivated land in spite of corresponding decline of cultivable wastelands. It is clear that the scope for bringing in additional land under net sown area in India is limited. There is thus an urgent need to evolve and adopt land saving technologies. Such technologies can be classified under two heads: those which raise the yield of any particular crop per unit area of land, and those which increase the total output per unit area of land from all crops grown over one agriculture year by increasing land use intensity. Children, the advantage of the latter kind of technology is that along with increasing output from limited land, it is also increases the demand for labor significantly. For a land scarce but labor abundant country like India, a high cropping intensity is desirable not only for fuller utilization of land resource but also for reducing unemployment in the rural economy. Children, the cropping intensity, that is CI, is calculated as follows. Cropping intensity in percentage is equals to total cropped area upon net area sown into 100. Cropping seasons in India. There are three distinct crop seasons in northern and interior parts of country, namely Kharif, Rabi and Zaid. The Kharif season largely coincides with southwest monsoon, under which the cultivation of tropical crops such as rice, cotton, jute, jawar, bajra and tur is possible. The next is Zaid, is a short duration summer cropping season beginning after harvesting of rabi crops. The cultivation of watermelon, cucumbers, vegetables and fodder crops during this season is done on irrigated lands. Children, however, this type of distinction in the cropping season does not exist in southern parts of the country. The temperature is high enough to grow tropical crops during any period in the year provided the soil moisture is available. Therefore, in this region, same crops can be grown thrice in an agriculture year provided there is a significant soil moisture. The Rabi season begins with the onset of winter in October-November and ends in March-April. Children, the low temperature conditions during this season facilitate the cultivation of temperature and subtropical crops such as wheat, gram and mustard. Types of farming. On the basis of main source of moisture for crops, the farming can be classified as irrigated and rain-fed, Gurnani, There is difference in the nature of irrigated farming as well as based on the objective of irrigation, that is protective or productive. Irrigation is to protect the crops from adverse effects of soil moisture deficiency, which often means that irrigation acts as a supplementary source of water over and above the rainfall. Productive irrigation is meant to provide sufficient soil moisture in the cropping season to achieve high productivity. Children, in such irrigation, the water input per unit area of cultivated land is higher than protective irrigation. Rain-fed farming is further classified on the basis of adequacy of soil moisture during cropping season into dryland and wetland farming. The dryland farming is largely confined to the regions having annual rainfall less than 75 cm. These regions grow hardy and drought resistant crops such as ragi crops, bajra crops, moong crops, gram, guar, that is fodder crops, and also practice various measures of soil moisture conservation and rainwater harvesting. In wetland farming, the rainfall is in excess of soil moisture requirements of plants during rainy season. Such regions may face flood and soil erosion hazards. Children, these areas grows various water intensive crops such as rice, jute and sugarcane, and practice aquaculture in the freshwater bodies. Food grains. The importance of food grains in India agriculture economy may be gauged from the fact these crops occupy about two-thirds of total cropped area in the country. Cereals. The cereals occupy about 54% of total cropped area in India. India produces a variety of cereals which are classified as fine grains that are rice and wheat and coarse grains that jawar, bajra, maize, ragi, etc. Children, food grains are dominant crops in all parts of the country, whether they have subsistence or commercial agriculture economy. Rice. Rice is a staple food for the overwhelming majority of population in India, though it is considered to be a crop of tropical humid areas. It has about 3,000 varieties which are grown in different agroclimate regions. Children, about one-fourth of the total cropped area in the country is under rice cultivation. West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh and Punjab were the leading rice producing states in the country in the year 2015-16. Children, the yield level of rice is high in Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Haryana, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, West Bengal and Kerala. Children, in these areas, almost the entire land is under rice cultivation. Children, the yield of this crop is very low in rain-fed areas of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Odisha. Wheat. Wheat is the second most important cereal crop in India after rice. India produces about 11.7% of total wheat production of world in the year 2015. It is primarily a crop of temperate zone, hence its cultivation in India is done during winter, that is Rabi season. About 85% of the total area under this crop is concentrated in north and central regions of the country, that is Indo-Gangetic Plain, Malwa Plateau and Himalayas up to 2700 meters altitude. Children, being a rabi crop, it is mostly grown under irrigated conditions, but it is a rain-fed crop in Himalayan highlands and parts of Malwa Plateau in Madhya Pradesh. Jawar, the coarse cereals together occupy about 16.50% of the total cropped area in the country. It is the main food crop in semi-arid areas of central and southern India. Children, Maharashtra alone produces more than half of the total jawar production of the country. Other leading producer states of jawar are Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. It is sown in both Kharif and Rabi season in the southern states, but it is a Kharif crop in the northern India where it is mostly grown as a fodder crop. South of Vindhyachal, it is a rain-fed crop and its yield level is very low in this region. Bajra. Bajra is sown in hot and dry climatic conditions in northern western and western parts of the country. It is a hardy crop which resists frequent dry spells and droughts in this region. It is cultivated alone as well as part of mixed cropping. Children, this coarse cereal occupies about 5.2% of total cropped area in the country. Leading producers of bajra are the states of Maharashtra, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan and Haryana. Yield of this crop has increased during recent years in Haryana and Gujarat due to introduction of drought-resistant varieties and expansion of irrigation under it. Maize. Maize is a food as well as fodder crop grown under semi-arid climatic conditions and over inferior soils. This crop occupies only about 3.6% of the total cropped area. Maize cultivation is not concentrated in any specific region. This crop occupies only about 3.6% of the total cropped area in India. Children, it is sown all over India except Punjab and eastern and the northeastern regions. The leading producers of maize are the states of Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh. Yield level of maize is higher than other coarse cereals. Pulses. Pulses are very important ingredient of vegetarian food as these are rich in the source of proteins. These are legume crops which increase the natural fertility of soil through nitrogen fixation. India is leading producer of pulses in the world. Children, the cultivation of pulses in the country is largely concentrated in the dry lands of Deccan and Central Plateaus and northwestern parts of the country. Pulses occupy about 11% of the total cropped area in the country. Being the rain-fed crops of the drylands, the yield of pulses are low and fluctuate from year to year. Gram and tur are the main pulses cultivated in India. Gram is cultivated in subtropical areas. It is mostly a rain-fed crop cultivated during Rabi season in central, western and northwestern parts of the country. Just one or two light showers or irrigations are required to grow this crop successfully. It has been displaced from the cropping pattern by wheat in Haryana, Punjab and northern Rajasthan following the Green Revolution. Children, at present, gram covers only about 2.8% of the world cropped area in the country. Tur or arhar. Tur is the second important pulse crop in the country. It is also known as red gram or pigeon pea. It is cultivated over marginal lands and under rain-fed conditions in the dry areas of central and southern states of the country. Children, this crop occupies only about 2% of the total cropped area of India. Maharashtra alone contributes about one-third of the total production of tur. Other leading producer states are Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka, Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh. Oilseeds. The oilseeds are produced for extracting edible oils. Oilseed crops are groundnut, rapeseed, mustard, soybean, sunflower are the main oilseed crops grown in India. Dry lands of Malwa Plateau, Marathwada, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Telangana, Rayalaseema region of Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka Plateau are oilseeds growing regions of India. These crops together occupy about 14% of the total cropped area in the country. Soybean and sunflower are other important oilseeds grown in India. Soybean is mostly grown in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. These two states together produce about 90% of total output of soybean in the country. Sunflower cultivation is concentrated in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana and adjoining areas of Maharashtra. Children, it is a minor crop in northern parts of the country where its yield is high due to irrigation. Groundnut. India produces about 15% of the total groundnut production in the world. It is largely a rain-fed kharif crop of dry lands, but in southern India it is cultivated during rabi seasons as well. Children, it covers about 3.6% of the total cropped area in the country. Gujarat, Rajasthan and Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Maharashtra are the leading producers. Rapeseed and mustard. Rapeseed and mustard comprise several oil seeds as rye, sarso, toria and terra maria. These are subtropical crops cultivated during Rabi season in northwestern and central parts of India. These are frost sensitive crops and their yields fluctuate from year to year. But with the expansion of irrigation and improvement in seed technology, their yields have improved and stabilized to some extent. About two-thirds of the cultivated area under these crops is irrigated. Children, these oilseeds together occupy only about 2.5% of total cropped area in the country. And the leading producer states are Haryana and Madhya Pradesh. Fiber crops. These crops provide us fiber for preparing cloth, bags, sacks and a number of other items. Cotton and jute are two main fiber crops grown in India. Cotton. Cotton is a tropical crop grown in Kharif season in semi-arid areas of the country. India lost a large proportion of cotton growing area to Pakistan during partition. Since 50 years, cultivation of cotton has increased considerably. Children, India grows both short staple that is Indian cotton as well as long staple that is American cotton called Narma in the northwestern parts of the country. Children, cotton requires clear sky during flowering stage. India ranks second in the world in the production of cotton after China. Cotton occupies about 4.7% of total cropped area in the country. There are three cotton growing areas, that is parts of Punjab, Haryana and northern Rajasthan in the northwest, Gujarat and Maharashtra in the west and plateaus of Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu in the south. Children, leading producers of this crop are Gujarat, Maharashtra and Telangana. Jute. Jute is used for making coarse cloth, bags, sacks and decorative items. It is a cash crop in the West Bengal and adjoining eastern parts of the country. Children, India lost large jute growing areas to East Pakistan, that is Bangladesh, during partition. At present, India produces about 3/5 of jute production of the world. West Bengal accounts for about 3/4 of the production in the country. Bihar and Assam are other jute growing areas. Being concentrated only in few states, these crops accounts for only about 0.5% of total cropped area in the country. In the given figure is the image of the India map shows the states in India produces maximum cotton crops. In the given figure is the map of India shows top 10 jute producing states in the year 2016 and 2017. Sugarcane. Sugarcane is a crop of tropical areas under rain-fed conditions. It is cultivated in sub-humid and humid climates, but it is largely an irrigated crop in India. In Indo-Gangetic Plain, it is cultivated largely concentrated in Uttar Pradesh. India was the second largest producer of sugar cane after Brazil in 2015. Sugarcane growing area in western India is spread over Maharashtra and Gujarat. In southern India, it is cultivated in irrigated tracts of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, and Andhra Pradesh. Its yielding is low in northern India. In the given image is the map of India that shows top 10 sugarcane producing states in the year 2017 and 2018. Tea. Tea is a plantation crop used as beverage. Black tea leaves are fermented, whereas green tea leaves are unfermented. Tea leaves have rich content of caffeine and tannin. It is an indigenous crop of hill in northern China. It is grown over undulating topography of hilly areas and well-drained soils in humid and sub-humid tropic and subtropics. Children in India tea plantation started in 1840s in Brahmaputra Valley of Assam, which still is a major tea growing area in the country. Later on, its plantation was introduced in the sub-Himalayan regions of West Bengal, that is Darjeeling, Jalpaiguri and Cooch Behar districts. Tea is also cultivated on the lower slopes of Nilgiri and Cardamom Hills in Western Ghats. India is a leading producer of tea and accounts for about 21.8% of total production in the world 2015. India's share in the international market of tea has declined substantially. It ranks second among tea exporting countries in the world after China 2015. Children, Assam accounts for about 53.2% of the total cropped area and contributes more than half of the total production of the tea in the country. West Bengal and Tamil Nadu are the other leading producers of tea. Coffee. Coffee is a tropical plantation crop. Its seeds are roasted, ground, and are used for preparing a beverage. There are three varieties of coffee, that is Arabica, Robusta, and Liberica. India mostly grows superior quality coffee, Arabica, which is in a great demand in international market. Children, India produces about 3.7% coffee of the world and ranks 7th after Brazil, Vietnam, Colombia, Indonesia, Ethiopia, and Honduras in 2015. Coffee is cultivated in the highlands of Western Ghats in Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. Karnataka alone accounts for more than two-thirds of total production of coffee in the country. Agriculture development in India. Indian agriculture economy was largely subsistence in nature before independence. It had dismal performance in the first half of 20th century. Children this period witnessed severe droughts and famines. During partition, about one-third of the irrigated land in undivided India went to Pakistan. This reduced the proportion of irrigated area in independent India. After independence, the immediate goal of the government was to increase food grains production by switching over from cash crops to food crops, intensification of crops over already cultivated land, increasing cultivated area by bringing cultivable and fallow land under plough. Initially, this strategy helped in increasing food grains production. Agriculture production stagnated during late 1950s. To overcome this problem, Intensive Agriculture District Program, that is IADP, and Intensive Agriculture Area Program, that is IAAP, were launched. New seed varieties of wheat and rice known as high-yielding varieties, that is HYVs, were available for cultivation by mid 1960s. India took advantages of this and introduced packaged technology comprising HYVs along with chemical fertilizers in irrigated areas of Punjab, Andhra Pradesh and Gujarat. Assured supply of soil moisture through irrigation was a basic prerequisite for the success of this new agriculture technology. Children, this strategy of agriculture development paid dividends instantly and increased the food grains production at very fast rate. The sudden growth in the agriculture came to known as Green Revolution. This leads to the development of a large number of agro-inputs, agro-processing industries and a small-scale industries. Children, this strategy of agriculture development made the country self-reliant in food grain production. But Green Revolution was initially confined to irrigated areas only. This led to regional disparities in agriculture development in the country till 1970s, after which the technology spread to the eastern and central parts of the country. The Planning Commission of India focused its attention on the problems of agriculture in rain-fed areas in 1980s. It initiated agro-climatic planning in 1988 to induce regionally balanced agriculture development in the country. It also emphasized on the need for diversification of agriculture and harnesses of resources for the development of dairy farming, poultry, horticulture, livestock rearing and aquaculture. Growth of agriculture output and technology. Production and yield of many crops such as rice and wheat has increased at an impressive rate. Among the other crops, the production of sugarcane, oilseeds and cotton has also increased appreciably. Expansion of irrigation has played a crucial role in enhancing agriculture output in the country. It provided basis for introduction of modern agriculture technologies such as high-yielding variety of seeds, chemical fertilizers, pesticides and farm machinery. The net irrigated area in the country has also increased. Modern agriculture technology has diffused very fast in various areas of the country. Consumption of chemical fertilizers has increased by 15 times since mid-60s. Since the high-yielding varieties are highly susceptible to pests and diseases, the use of pesticides has increased significantly since 1960s. Problems of Indian agriculture. Dependence on erratic monsoon. Irrigation covers only about 33% of the cultivated area in India. The crop production in rest of the cultivated land directly depends on rain. The nature of problems faced by Indian agriculture varies according to agroecological and historical experiences of its different regions. Hence, most of the agriculture problems in the country are region specific. Yet there are some problems which are common and range from physical constraints to institutional hindrances. Low productivity. The yield of the crops in the country is low in comparison to the international level. Per hectare output of most of the crops such as rice, wheat, cotton and oilseeds in India is much lower than that of USA, Russia and Japan. Because of the very high pressure on the land resources, the labor productivity in Indian agriculture is also very low in the comparison to international level. The vast rain-fed areas of the country, particularly dry lands which mostly grow coarse cereals, pulses and oilseeds, have low yields. Low productivity represents a huge need and opportunity. Low investment in research, low input usage and yield levels, very limited access to market, poor policy and regulatory environment. Constraints of financial resources and in-depthness. The inputs of modern agriculture are very expensive. This resource intensive approach has become unmanageable for marginal and small farmers as they have very meager or no saving to invest in agriculture. To hide over these difficulties, most of such farmers have resorted to availing credit from various institutions and moneylenders. Crop failures and low returns from agriculture have forced them to fall in the trap of indebtedness. Children, debt leads to death count mounts. Farmer suicides in 2015, Assam was 84, Arunachal Pradesh 7, Meghalaya 2, Manipur 1, Tripura 1. Agriculture workers suicides Assam 54, Tripura 48, Arunachal 3, Mizoram 1. Major causes bankruptcy or indebtedness, farming issues, family problems, illness and drug abuse, alcoholic addiction. Lack of land reforms. India peasantry had been exploited for a long time as there had been unequal distribution of land among the three revenue system operational during British period, that is Mahalwari, Rohitwari and Zamindari. The last one was most exploitive for the peasants. After independence, land reforms were accorded priority. Children, these reforms were not implemented effectively due to lack of strong political will. Most of the state governments avoided taking political tough decisions which went against strong political lobbies of landlords. Lack of implementation of land reforms has resulted in continuation of inequitous distribution of cultivable land, which is detrimental to agriculture development. Small farm size and fragmentation of land holdings. There are a large number of marginal and small farmers in the country. The average size of land holding is shrinking under increasing population pressure. Small and fragmented land holdings, the pressure of increasing population and the practice of dividing land equally among the heirs has caused excessive subdivision of farm holdings. Consequently, the holdings are small and fragmented. The small size of holdings make farming activity uneconomical and leads to social tension, violence and discontentment. Lack of commercialization. A large number of farmers produce crops for self-consumption. These farmers do not have enough land resources to produce more than their requirement. Children, most of the small and marginal farmers grow food grains which are meant for their own family consumption. Modernization and commercialization of agriculture have, however, taken place in the irrigated areas. Causes of unemployment. Seasonal agriculture. Agriculture in India is basically a seasonal affair. It provides employment facilities to the rural people only in a particular season of the year. For example, during the sowing and harvesting period, people are fully employed, and the period between the post-harvest and before the next sowing they remain unemployed. It has adversely affected their standard of living. Limited land. Since India population increasing rapidly, therefore the land is not sufficient for the growing population. As a result, there is a heavy pressure on the land. In rural areas, most of the people depend directly on the land for their livelihood. It creates the unemployment situation for a large number of persons who depend on agriculture in rural areas. Degradation of cultivable land. One of the serious problems that arises out of faulty strategy of irrigation and agriculture development is degradation of land resources. Children, this is a serious problem because it may lead to depletion of soil fertility. The situation is particularly alarming in irrigated areas. A large tract of agricultural land has lost its fertility due to alkalization and salinization of soil and water logging. Excessive use of chemicals such as insecticides and pesticides has led to their concentration in toxic amounts in the soil profile. Leguminous crops have been displaced from the cropping pattern in the irrigated areas, and the duration of fallow has substantially reduced owing to multiple cropping. This has obliterated the process of natural fertilization such as nitrogen fixation. Rain-fed areas in humid and semi-arid tropics also experience degradation of several types like soil erosion by soil and wind erosion, which are often induced by human activities.